Welcome to the Organizational Transformation Kung Fu Podcast with your hosts, Sandi Verrecchia and Jennifer Long.
So welcome to this next episode of Organizational Transformation Kung Fu, or OT Kung Fu, as Jen and I like to call it. We've called it this because we really feel when we're talking about leadership and coaching and all the different areas of strength of leaders and change, everything takes time and it takes practice and it takes dedication, and you really need to focus. And Kung Fu is all about that. And so the premise of Kung Fu for us was this notion of, nothing gets done overnight, and you really need to sort of lean into the art and the discipline of really good leadership. And so today we're going to be talking about, is there such thing as a perfect leader? Before we do that, I'm just going to introduce my podcast co-host, Jen Long from Colorado, from Own Up.
Hello, Sandi. It's so good to see you.
You as well. And Jen and I are super excited because recently, through FeedSpot, which is a content reader, our podcast was recognized as number 3 in the top 30 for Agile Leader podcasts, and in the top 4 podcasts for women seeking women's voices. So we're super excited about that because we've been sort of on this trek for a while now, and to see that it's being recognized was super exciting.
That is super exciting. And thank you to the organizations that found us and nominated us and all the people who subscribe and download. We really, really appreciate you. And so we'd like to encourage you to share it out. Share us out to some of your pals that haven't tuned in or listened in. And if you find us useful and helpful, we would love to help your friends. So let them know.
For sure. And so I was just reflecting. So we've been on this journey for a few years now, reflecting on some of the topics. And so accountability, obviously, because Jen is the accountability guru of the world. DEI, we've done a number of podcasts. We had some experts on about that. Workplace culture, many podcasts and having different experts on what workplace culture and sort of what works and what doesn't. We've talked about good strategy and bad strategy and just strategy and strategic planning, and leading during stressful times, which was a big topic, obviously, during the pandemic, and sort of continues to be, I think, with the world sort of in flux and things like that. So we're super excited about our podcast, and we'd love to hear from you if you have some topics that you'd like to hear from us, because we're always looking for new and great ideas around leadership. So today we are going to be talking about, is there such a thing as a perfect leader? And Jen and I think we both agree that although the word perfect probably throws it off, there is no such thing as perfect in anything in the world, but there's
Right.
Good leaders. And so we're going to talk about how leaders can be sort of imperfect and still sort of somewhat be perfect because of how they're surrounding themselves and things like that. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. What I would say is there's no such thing as a perfect leader, but there is such a thing as an imperfect leader.
Mm-hmm.
And imperfection is a good thing when you know you're imperfect.
Yeah. It's about self-reflection and sort of understanding yourself, right? And not putting yourself up on a pedestal saying you're going to be perfect at everything because now you're in this leadership role, because that is impossible and not sustainable, I would say.
Correct. And just even interpret the word perfect, right? The perfect leader is the leader that knows everything, that should know everything, that should have the answer and the vision and the direction, all of that stuff. And I think a lot of that perfection is really more about the pressure that executives put on themselves to have those capabilities, and can sometimes, burn themselves out trying to overcompensate for areas that they shouldn't even be messing in, where they should be using different strategies.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we want to talk about.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think about when you talk about that is this notion of, what is it?
Oh, she's looking for a word. It's going to come to her in a minute.
The imposter syndrome, right? So a lot of leaders,
Okay.
a lot of leaders, they get promoted to these roles, and then they feel that they're imposters because they don't know everything. And we're here to tell you that you don't need to know everything as a leader, right?
Yeah, big collective, sigh of relief, breathe in, breathe out. When you get promoted into that position, that leadership, top of the hill, it really is an opportunity for you to start to understand how to leverage other people explicitly.
Yeah.
You're not going to know everything. Businesses are too complex to just the way things are structured and the globalness of things. And it's too much for one person. And you just got to be okay with that. And so lean into how do you know yourself, right? One of the key things around being friends with your imperfection and finding strength in that is your own level of self-awareness. What do you know about you in terms of your own blind spots, and your own strengths, and how do those show up for you in this role that you're in? And are you able to play to your strengths, and are you strategic about that? And how would you qualify your blind spots, and what are you doing strategically to address those, because how are they going to impact?
Right, right. And so you have to have a real critical eye, right? When you're sitting there and reflecting on your blind spots, right? Because they're called blind spots for a reason, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you don't know that they're there. So sort of Johari's window is a really good exercise to say, what are people seeing that I'm not doing? And so sort of going through an exercise that is really really looking at yourself from a really critical lens and not sugarcoating anything, right? Because it's
Right.
okay
It
not
is
to
okay.
be, yeah, like,
Yeah.
gosh, nobody can sit here and say we're perfect.
And I'll explain, as you mentioned, Johari Window. For those of you who don't know what Johari Window is, right? It's kind of a quad chart. Well, kind of. It is a
Mhm.
quad
It
chart.
is.
And the upper left is what's known to you and what's known to others. Those are the obvious traits that people see in you, that they recognize, that you recognize. That's the easy part. The upper right window is unknown to others, but known to you.
Known to you. Mhm.
So it's something that you're aware of that they're not aware of, right? So these might be secret strengths that you have, superpowers that people are not necessarily aware of, that you could share, lean into, and look to understand. And then the lower left window is oh no, I've got that backwards. The lower left window is unknown to others and known to you. Those are your secrets. That's the stuff that you're hiding, right?
Mhm.
That's your imposter syndrome. That's your internal stress on what you think
Yes.
you don't know or how you're showing up, right? And then, oh God, the upper window is um, known to you
And not
and
known to
not known to
others.
others. Yeah. And then the right hand window, lower one, is unknown to you and unknown to others. It's the unknown parts, and that's sort of a deeper subconscious kind of coming to terms with. And so the idea is that upper left is where your window is open, and then how are you
Mhm.
opening up those other four quadrants to yourself, so that you've got a good understanding, and people also have an understanding of you, because that self disclosure is what, if you can name it, you can own it, and you can do something with it. And so opening that window is kind of putting names on things and having an awareness of how they're going to impact. And
Right,
getting to the
right.
unknown unknowns is something you can do in coaching.
Absolutely.
We like to use metaphor cards, which are makes your brain work in a different
Mhm.
whole way. And when you look at images and you look at how an image speaks to you about leadership, it can help you start to understand things about yourself that you know instinctually and subconsciously, but haven't really explored. And so
Right.
that's an exercise to try and figure that out.
Yes, yes. But we're sort of going to focus in right now on the areas that's known to you and maybe not known to others, because again, that could be your superpowers, but it also could be the areas where you are feeling that you are an imposter, that you
Yes.
need to reconcile and maybe show it to others, right? Do we need to hide it all the
Yeah.
time?
It's I think, a relief to people when they stop hiding things that they're insecure about. And um, the act of identifying your own insecurities is really part of what makes you stronger in your imperfection. To say, wow, I'm really bad at maybe being creative or conceptual. And I'm super structured in detail and practicality or whatever. And so I'm going to struggle with things like vision. I'm going to struggle with innovation. I'm going to struggle with some of that kind of stuff. And those feel like big areas for executives because they're expected to be able to see around the corner. And what do we want to look like in the next 2 to 5? And that might be one of those things you quietly struggle with.
Mm-hmm. But by naming it, and with your group, with your team, with your executive team, whatever the team might look like, is allowing you yourself to be vulnerable, right? And we've talked about this probably every podcast, the need to be vulnerable in order so others can also be vulnerable or step up to help you in that state. And so I think as leaders thinking that they need to be perfect at everything, Jen, your example of vision is a really good one. If you're not good at it, surround yourself with people that are. Right? Lean into their expertise and have them rise you up and raise you up, so that as a team collectively you can do it. And so because you're not on an island because you're in a leadership position, you're not in an island, right? Their organizations have lots of people for reasons like this, right?
Exactly. And when you bring other people into work with relative to your shortcomings or your blind spots or your deficits, however you want to look at it, you're lifting them up. You're giving them opportunity. You're connecting in another
Showcase.
whole other way. So that's why the imperfection becomes the strength. It becomes the strength of relationship. It becomes the strength of team. All of those things become part of
Strength
it.
of communication, right?
Yeah.
Right? Allows
I
for
think,
those dynamic conversations, which don't often happen.
right. Another issue, I think, other than the one we just talked about, around authenticity and knowing yourself, and is humility. Right. And humility has a lot to do with how good are you at learning from your mistakes? Because people make mistakes. You are people, and that's just going to happen. And how do you respond in that moment? And how do you take the learning and apply the learning? Because if you are very busy covering your butt, is that your MO? Is your ego in charge because you can't look bad? Or are you actually open to say, holy smacks, I've dropped the ball completely here. And let's talk about what we need to learn from this because we've got to do something different.
And I can't sort of comment enough about when we see leaders in the moment talking like that and being vulnerable and saying, gosh, I've made a mistake, help me fix it. It just brings the team closer together, and you can just do so much more, and it can be so much more impactful because people feel like they are trusted for you to be saying something like that. And so it's really, really important. So to recognize when you've done something wrong, but to have the humility enough to talk about it and share it and ask for help. Not an easy task, right? Not an easy task,
right.
but an important aspect of leadership.
It's critical because it kicks the door. Your humility kicks the door open for learning. And if you're on a leadership team, you should also be a learning team. Learning teams aren't for other directors or managers in your organization. You guys should be modeling at the top, and it starts with humility to be able to say, what are we learning from this? How are we learning from each other? And what are we learning about the bad decisions we're making? Because
right.
Somewhere you're making a bad decision. It's happening.
Yeah. I think the other thing to this, though, is that everybody's so busy, right? You hear the term all the time. Everybody's busy. And, to take the time to self-reflect as a team on, did we make a bad decision? What did we learn? How can we do it better? It may feel like it's not time well spent because, we got to get on to the next thing, right? The next big thing is looming. But I can assure you, and I think, Jen, you probably attest to this, the more time you spend learning and applying that learning back, the next big thing becomes easier to do. And so
Right.
take the time to reflect as a team and bring that learning in, share the learning down throughout the organization, critical.
Yeah, not just share it, apply it. Apply it, right? So many times we do the reflection, we do the work of putting it all up on a whiteboard, and we talk about it and we go, yeah, and that's it. It's like, how does it change a system? How does it change, a structure? How does it change? What is the applied impact of doing the learning, right? And when you look at what you can learn, right? That what were the things in your own personality that drove it, right? What are you learning about you in your own impatience, or your own need to hit a number, or your own need to protect your turf, or whatever, right? It could be any of those things. So humility is a big, big one in terms of harnessing that to harness your learning and mistakes and make them a strength.
Yeah.
The other one I would say is, what I like is resilience, right? Which is another piece of when you have setbacks, how you manage that.
Yeah. So what's your fight or flight, right? When something sets you back, what do you do? How do you get back on your feet quickly and regain some of the ground that you've lost? And we just did our future leaders course a couple of weeks ago, and we talked a lot about resilience and leadership and what it means, and how do you pick up the pieces and move on?
Yeah. How do you not shatter your own confidence and come through something that tests you, comes through something that breaks part of your organization, come through something and come through stronger?
Yeah. And I think one of those things, I think you mentioned it before, Jen, is, having a coach help you work through that sort of thing is really incredibly important, because how you came through it, whether you came through it looking good or came through it not looking so good, having a coach help you work through that is a really important one, right? It's good to self-reflect, but it's good to have somebody that can help expand the barriers or the boundaries, perhaps, of how you're viewing things. And so that when something like that happens again, you're able to be a bit more resilient next time. So again, learning.
Exactly. And I'm thinking about some clients right now who have actually come through some some really tough stuff where they really performed poorly, handed off to a partner or some stuff that wasn't functional, that didn't work, that was substandard. And it wasn't just the leaders at the top, right? It was leaders at every level somewhere along the line didn't make good decisions, didn't perform at the level they needed to perform. And so I think it's, we talk very one-on-one because we're dealing with individual leaders, but I think you also have to understand that sometimes when you're in these things of humility and resilience, you're in there with a team of leaders at different levels in the organization, having to walk through I can't use the word, then we'll get an explicit mark. A total screw up that they really all have to examine at all the different levels. And so those, I think, are even almost more difficult, because you're looking not just at one person doing something, you're looking at a whole team of people at various parts in a process or what have you, who didn't deliver. And so it really, to not live in the shame and the humiliation,
The blame.
but to understand those feelings are there, and how do you come through that, and how do you acknowledge that and create space for that, but also create the space of, if we don't talk about it, we don't learn from it, so we can't ignore it. And turning that moment of self-protection into a moment of relief.
Yeah.
To
Well
say,
said.
we all did it, right? We all, there's nobody in
We all
here.
screwed up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And not blame. It's not a pointing the fingers game, right? It didn't happen at a certain level. Yeah, so acknowledging it, but yeah, talking about it, absolutely
Yeah.
important. Which sort
Yeah.
of
And
leads
so,
to that next word, which would have been around courage,
yes,
which is what
exactly.
you're talking about, the
Ex-
courage to have those conversations.
mm-hmm. Right. And uh, Brene Brown, right? Flip side of you cannot be vulnerable without being courageous. And so those two things are the same side, the flip sides of the same coin, and the courage to really admit to here's the point at which I made this decision. And look at that and think about how you were thinking and think about, wow, what was the better decision? And be okay to talk about that because that is your own learning in action. And um, the courage to ask the hard questions. And I think that's another piece of, do we rush to problem solving and not spend enough time in understanding the faulty thinking and how did that happen?
And I think a lot of that whole element of being courageous is again taking that time. And I really, for listeners today, I'd like you to sit there and really reflect after this podcast of, when you're thinking about your leadership style within your organization, doesn't allow for vulnerability. Are there courageous moments that you can think of, either in yourself or in others in your organization, that you can draw on as examples to say, if we did more of this, we would be better off?
Yeah. And because you're going to get to things like I was just learning an exercise around the lies we tell ourselves, right? Is that it gets a lot easier to really face those things and hear them and see them and notice their impacts and stymie that self or stymie that stuff earlier on in a process when you start to go, wait, what are we telling ourselves? And is that really true? Or are
How
we
true is
just, does
it?
that just feel comfortable?
Yeah. Yeah. Or is
Yeah.
it deflective? Right.
Right.
We're actually doing, you shared that with me, and I love it. I'm doing it in a couple of weeks with a leadership team out
Yeah, I want to
west.
hear how it goes.
I know. Yeah. It'll be tense, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. And
and is it? I think, but a lot of it is that deflecting, right? And so I was talking about with the CEO about, well, what are some lies that might be told on this one, and he said, well, the next meeting will be better than the last, because
oh,
they never change, right? And I said, oh, is that true? And he goes, yeah, we all pretty much lie to ourselves that the next one's going to be better. And so we're like, well, let's talk about it. So anyway, I'll let you know.
yeah. Yeah. And it even gets to things like you can be in a team and you can say, all right, we're going to make these working agreements amongst ourselves and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to how this is going to work. And that statement right there is a lie you're telling yourself because for the last 10 years, none of you have held yourselves accountable to anything you've ever come out of as a team agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Our
just doesn't
first
happen.
point of contact with this one is to go through their team charter and look at it from, what lies are we telling ourselves about it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing is to get through the whole facilitation of a team offsite and talk about it at the front end and so that they're getting a little bit more self-disclosure and feeling a little more psychologically safe and nailing things down a little bit more clearly. And then to come back around at the end after they've done it again and make new agreements and say, any of these a lie you're telling yourself? And get him to really, because that's the pattern. And what are you going to do to break the pattern and ensure that you're breaking the pattern?
that's right. And I think whether you're the leader at the top and you've been in the role for a while, or you're a new leader in a leadership position, there's room
Mm-hmm.
for all of this at every level. And so, we're not looking up saying, well, if the top leader's not doing it, then I can't do it within my group, or, cross-functionally, or what have you. Really encourage you to sort of embrace these qualities of imperfection as a leader. And again, modeling it, whether you're modeling it for going below or you're modeling it up,
Yeah.
model it for others, because others will come and they'll see the power of it. I do
Yeah.
believe.
And right. And let's just go right back to leadership is not a position. When we talk about leader, right? If you've got the need to lean into your imperfection. It doesn't matter where you are in the organization. All of this applies to you. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Um, there are two more. There are two more qualities I think that are worth mentioning. One is adaptability and one is inclusivity. And I think people who are easier with their own imperfections are more adaptable because they understand they're not perfect and they've got to learn and pivot and create space to understand things that maybe they don't understand, and they're willing to do that. They don't just push through it or ignore things or bypass what they don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, adaptability is you're right, is that ability to realize when you need to be adaptable, which means you need to be vulnerable to others and to self. I think that's the bottom line of that one.
Yeah. Is
Learning, pivoting.
Yep. And then inclusivity, right? Inclusivity, because you suck at stuff, you bring in people who are better. You look across an organization and you go, who can I leverage? And how can I take different thinking and different capability and bring that in and make it matter? And so by default, because you're actually looking to cover the base of what you need skill set wise, thinking wise, experience wise, you are willing to bring others in. And that just is a good thing.
Yeah, it's kind of the wrapper on all of this, right? Because if you're authentic and you sort of know self, if you're humble and you lean into your humility, if you are resilient, if you're courageous, you're adaptable, the inclusivity sort of wraps it all, because it means that you need to bring others into the fold. You can't do it on your own. You need to share, and you need to lean into others and leverage the skill sets around you, because there's things that you're going to be good at and things you're not going to be good at, and others in the organization can fill that void. So being inclusive will without a doubt raise the level of team and teaming within your organization when you're bringing others on.
Yes. Yeah. And more brains are always better than one.
Yes, indeed. And so first question I asked is such a thing as a perfect leader?
No, and that's okay.
No. There isn't, right? You can't be perfect on your own. And in any, whether in a leadership role, in a relationship role of any sorts, in work, out of work, perfect doesn't exist. And so if you're trying to emulate somebody who you think is perfect, realize that they are still struggling with their own imperfections. You may just maybe not see it. Johari's window, think about that. What are they not showing you? And if they were showing you some of those imperfections, could the relationships be stronger? And could the organization be stronger? And so we really want to make sure that we're not hiding all of these things and trying to be something that we're not.
Right. Put it out there, see it, say it, own it, deal with it, leverage it, make it work for you.
Be an imperfect leader and
be an imperfect leader.
Do it, do it with pride. Yeah.
Do it with pride. Yes.
Yeah.
So those are that's the message of the podcast. Embrace your imperfection, because embracing your imperfection makes you strong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. Remember that this is not if you take the whole Kung Fu aspect, this is something that you're going to have to practice. It's not going to be something that you're going to gravitate to overnight, but it takes time, takes patience, but you'll get there and your organization will be better for it and you'll be a better person for it.
100%. Embrace the suck.
Yeah. Embrace the suck. On that
note, we'll see you on our next podcast.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
About other things that you can embrace that will be good for you. Thank you, Sandi.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Jen. Talk soon.
Thank you so much for listening. You can check out Sandi's website at satoriconsultinginc.ca. That's SATORI consultinginc.ca. And visit Jen's website at own-up.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.